Hey, you're listening to Rising into Mindful Motherhood. I'm your host, Dr. Katie Wood. I'm a barefoot mama bear, pharmacist, integrative fertility health coach, and lover of all things nature and animals. I'm on a mission to have intentional conversations about the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to fertility, pregnancy, postpartum, and beyond. My mindful guest and I will be talking about struggles, wins, natural wellness, and how we grow and transform as we enter motherhood. My background in healthcare has shown me how broken our medical system is. My own struggles to become pregnant has shown the lack of support for mamas to be, the lack of guidance for women to have a nourishing and vibrant pregnancy, the isolation, mom guilt, and all the things we hold after bringing baby earthside. I want this platform to be a place where women can feel connected, safe, and supported to share and hear their stories. A place to use our voice to discuss and advocate about what we need and deserve as mothers. So let's dive in, shall we? Hello and welcome. If you've been a listener for a while, I just want to really acknowledge you and thank you so much for just tuning in, listening to the podcast, sharing the podcast. It really means the world to me. It's just really turning out to be this fun thing that I get to do. I get to, interview experts and just kind of come on here and share whatever is on my heart for my solo episodes. And if you're new here, welcome. I'm so happy to have you here. I don't think that you'll be disappointed with this podcast. There's just so much to learn, especially if you come in with an open mind. So for today's episode, I just kind of wanted to share something that has been on my heart. And I think it's probably because it's, just around the time of year that this had happened. So back in 2018, when my husband and I were still trying to get pregnant, struggling to get pregnant, we had taken my stepson and my niece and two nephews to this science center that's relatively local to us. And my youngest nephew, oh man, he must have been maybe 4, I think around that time. And it was, a very busy day. I feel like we did mini golfing before and then did the science center, and just a lot to take in for a 4-year-old and try to keep up with his older sibling and older cousins. And I want to say I was about 9 months. We were 9 months into our fertility journey. I had my appointment with my new midwife at a new OB's office because I had switched offices. And, that in that same month, it was July of 2018. And I really just, I went to her and I was hoping oh, this is a midwife instead of a, obstetrician. I was hoping that she would have more natural insight, guidance, things like that, to share with me, as I felt pretty hopeless at this point. 9 months, that's really starting to creep up to a year. And she really didn't. It was just looking at surface level things well, your cycle is regular and you're healthy, so you just have to keep trying. But, just a tip, if you wanted to schedule an appointment at that 1-year mark with a fertility specialist, I would recommend doing that because they tend to book up. So that's pretty much what I left that office with. Just feeling like that was the only advice I had received, and that was not the advice I was looking for. So anyways, when we had taken everyone out for the day, that was in July. So I was feeling pretty frustrated, pretty hopeless at this point, desperate, alone. And when we were walking back to the car, my nephew was exhausted and he asked me to hold him and to carry him. And I felt so many mixed emotions in that moment. Like it felt so sweet. And I loved the fact that he wanted me to carry him. Like my heart was bursting. It felt so whole because he's also my godson and my nephew. Um, but also my heart ached and it hurt. And I had so much like self doubt of, will I ever have this moment with my own child? And even just like going back to that moment, like it makes me sad because it is such like a desperate and hopeless situation to be in, but also you just never know, right? In life, no matter what the situation is, you never know. Like, you don't know how you're going to die in your lifetime. Is it going to be today, tomorrow, 5 years from now, 10 years, 30 years? Like, you have no idea. And if you worry about that too much, and if you try to control that, you're going to drive yourself crazy. And I feel like conceiving and fertility is really no different. We have no idea when that's going to happen. And you can drive yourself nuts. You can drive yourself mad worrying about it, overthinking, overanalyzing, trying to make meaning of every little thing, right? As humans, we love to make meaning of everything. So when we're not conceiving, oh, that must mean there's something wrong. My body's broken. I'm not worthy. I don't deserve to be a mom because I did XYZ back in the day. That's why I'm not getting pregnant, because I grew up not necessarily wanting children. That's why I'm not getting pregnant, right? We drive ourselves nuts. And it just makes the situation worse, right? It just makes our stress levels increase, which then only like further drives our fertility into the ground, because stress is, high stress, chronic stress is not good. So little did I know in this moment when I was feeling really down on myself that I would actually end up conceiving in the next cycle in August of 2018, and I would be getting my first positive pregnancy test in very early September. And I share this with you because, like I had said, we just don't know. We never know when it's going to happen, how it's going to happen. And this is just kind of like a side note. I didn't think it could happen in August because my husband was going one way, I was going the other way. We had different commitments and they were surrounding my fertile window. So we had actually had, sex earlier in my fertile window. I don't even remember if it was even, I don't know. It was before we typically would have. And we just thought like it can't happen this month because of timing. I had like a bachelorette type party. I think he was fishing. So we were both relaxed. We weren't stressing about it. We weren't worrying about it. And then we both kind of met up towards the end of the month for a wedding. And it was just a laid back month because we had it in our minds like it can't happen. Well, it did. So that's what I mean by you just have no idea when it can happen. And I just want to share a recent story. I've connected with a woman recently. She's the sweetest woman. If you're listening, I imagine you'll know who you are. I'm not going to share names or any personal information. But she had been on her journey for a while, and she is quote unquote older. So I think she was getting to a point where it felt like she's on the clock. It was feeling hopeless. And, going through some personal things in her life. Her mother-in-law wasn't doing well, and they actually ended up losing her in a pretty short amount of time. And she reached out to me yesterday and said, I just got a positive pregnancy test, and I don't know how with everything that has been going on. So it's not meant to make sense. It's not meant to be logical because that's not how it works. It's not meant to be something that we can rationalize. And I think that's where it can be difficult for most because we want it to be logical. We want it to be rational. We want to be able to plan it out and, have a say in how it works, which is really a false sense of control. Control is an illusion. So if we can kind of take a step back and just look at the overall picture, how would it feel if you were able to just trust and to surrender to what will be, just like completely accepting that you can only do what you can do, but you don't have full control, and that having like a deep knowing that it will happen when it's meant to happen. Like the amount of stories that I've seen, I saw another story that a woman shared. She was told she could only conceive through IVF. I think she had like ovarian insufficiency at a younger age, like young 30s. And she had ended up conceiving her first child via IUI, maybe mid 30s. And then she ended up conceiving her second child at 37 naturally. But yet she was told when she was 30 that she couldn't do it without IVF. So it's just like it's not black and white. Nothing is guaranteed, especially being told that you can only conceive through IVF. That is not, a guaranteed thing. That is A, it's not guaranteed if you do IVF. And B, just because someone tells you that doesn't mean that that's the truth, that that's your only option, that that's the only way it can happen. So this wasn't necessarily what I was initially thinking of sharing, but right before I hopped on, I was like, I need to share this because, those memories came flooding back for me in July. And there was actually a picture that my husband took of me carrying my nephew. And I found it, in the cloud somehow. And I shared it on my Instagram. So I will include that link below if you want to check it out. But it's just something that I wanted to share from my heart, that none of us know what it's going to look like, when it's going to happen, how it's going to happen. And I think our journey, your journey, could be a lot easier, a lot more easeful, fun, pleasure-led if we let go of that pressure, of that need to know everything, to control everything, and just hold that unconditional trust in knowing that if it's on my heart to be a mom, if I know I'm going to be a mom, that means that It's already my reality. It already exists for me. It's just a matter of time and when. And, a lot of, being able to get yourself into that place of being able to accept and trust and surrender, it actually has a lot to do with our nervous system and creating safety within our bodies. We inherit trauma, generational trauma from our ancestors, and that is imprinted on like a cellular level for us. And so we already are starting out life with that. And then there are other traumas that happen in our own life. So whether perhaps your mother whether you experienced some birth trauma during your birth, maybe your mom was extremely stressed during her pregnancy. Maybe you've experienced things in your life that has encoded other traumas. It could be so many different things. It doesn't have to be a quote unquote like significant trauma that we tend to think of, like sexual trauma, physical abuse, things like that. It could be your parents getting divorced. It could be maybe you suffered like a severe illness when you were younger, or someone else in your family was really ill and maybe passed away when you were younger. It could be a car accident. It could be so many different things. And everyone's situation is different and unique, and we all respond to trauma differently. But everybody has some level of trauma, and that can make our nervous systems be hypervigilant, be on high alert, being in this state of fight or flight, or maybe even freeze, which is more of like a blended state. Like you feel like you need to do something that's very urgent, but then your body also has the brakes on. Like you have one foot on the gas, one foot on the brakes. So like you can't do anything. And this can create a cascade of other effects, hormonal imbalances that could include our reproductive hormones. It could include our thyroid hormone, our stress hormones, so many different things. And then when you add on, a fertility journey and it's not happening and we're creating meaning from that, we're just like adding on to this like toll that our body is having to kind of go through and hold. So doing nervous system work is really a huge, like I have been personally, learning this for my own personal reasons. And the more research I do and the more I learn about it, it's like, wow, this is like minimum 50% of this fertility equation, and nobody is talking about it. Like it's huge. And when you can get to this level of safety and be able to process and release trauma that's either not yours or trauma that was yours, you can create such resiliency within your body. So we had our workshop last week, Receive to Conceive, and this was exactly what we talked about. And it could really be a huge needle mover for you on your fertility journey. And there is a replay available for a limited time. So I'm going to share that link in the notes as well. But just imagine not needing to feel triggered when you get your period, when you see another pregnancy announcement, all of those things. And maybe even if you do get triggered, you have tools to pull you up out of that muck so much faster, so you don't get stuck in this like quicksand of shame, doubt, fear. You can pull yourself out of that and see results so much faster on your fertility journey. So I hope that this resonated. Please, if any of these episodes, if you find them really helpful, send me an email, send me a DM. I would love to hear from you, because if there's any like certain topics or anything that you want me to have an expert on to discuss, or you want me to discuss, let me know, because this podcast is here to support you, to serve you. So if I don't hear feedback from my listeners, I'm never going to be able to either improve or continue doing more of something that is being super supportive for you. That's the only way I can do that is by hearing from you. So I'm sending you so much love, so much abundance, and I am so grateful for you. And I hope you have a beautiful day. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Rising into Mindful Motherhood podcast. If this episode resonated with you or gave you an aha moment, stop what you're doing right now and write a review. This simple act of kindness helps me get this podcast out to connect with as many women as I possibly can. I also have a special offer. If you send me a screenshot of your review, I will take $250 off one of my premium coaching containers. Let me know what resonated with you the most and why. So connect with me in my free Facebook community or tag me on Instagram. You'll find both listed below. Thanks again from the bottom of my heart for tuning in to this episode, and I'll see you next time.